Welcome everyone, and again, another nice day. Um, so yeah, we'll start with a short breathing meditation, watching your mind breath mindfully. Then we can try to reflect and contemplate by thinking, even though it seems not easy time at this point, with that is going around in the world in general due to the pandemic, climate, and especially in this country. On top of that, the political environment. Sometimes we might feel very overwhelmed, never ending. Feel like this is the worst situation or circumstances or time. But also all of that is impermanent. It will also pass soon. Just as people have overcome much more difficult time than this time in the past. First World War, Second World War, and many, many other wars, Great Depressions, and so on throughout the history. So will this difficult time will also pass away. It will not last forever. The best that we can do during those difficult times is to practice, work with our own mind, trying to keep our mind sane, calm, as much as possible. Trying to develop more compassion, more kindness as much as possible. And to be able to do that, it's not enough just wishing to be able to do that. We need to put effort to practice. And to be able to practice, we have to be reminded of the practice all the time. If we don't get reminded, even we know, sometimes we tend to forget. And that is why we have come together, so we can be reminded of each other's. So we can encourage each other's. So we can support each other's, even though it's through virtual at the moment. So we can share our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions. And may us coming together with a good intention, making the effort, finding the time, and trying to listen, reflect, contemplate on the teachings. May all of this become cause and conditions for our individual spiritual growth, as well as for the spiritual growth of the collective, as the Sangha and the whole world. And may it become cause and conditions to all of us to obtain our highest potential, fully awakened state. So we can be even more greater help and benefit to each and every sentient being. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge, in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human being to be tamed, teacher of God and human being, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clean, I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devote homage to all worthy of respect, bowing the body as many as all realms, atoms, in all aspects with the supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous action. Perform only perfect virtuous action. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual apprehension, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, sea condition, things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four falls, and be delivered from the samsaric ocean, perturbed by the wave of aging, sickness, and death. 사시베게 중심에 또 나리라 리제 예데게 바데 상계신도 미데오와 lokun namantashin chuparajo edam gururana mandalakandiyatayam. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dhamma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodang toge chonam ma chanchu padu dane dake choche kipe sonam dola penche sangye dupa sangye chodang toge chonam chanchu padu dane dake choche kipe sonam dola penche sangye dupa. So last week, let me see. So last week we talked about a little bit about practicing when we try to practice Lojong or any Dharma practice. That our practice shouldn't be totally rely on the conditions, conditions dictating our practice. Regardless of whatever conditions, we should try to utilize that conditions to encourage and support our practice. If we wait for the right conditions to be able to practice, probably we might never find a time, and that kind of perfect condition that we are looking for might never come. So therefore, whatever condition that is presented in our life, different stages of life, utilizing that conditions for to strengthen our practice. When you have good health, thinking how fortunate I have good health. That might not be the case for all the times. So therefore, I should utilize this opportunity when I'm in good health to practice the Dhamma. When we are in a good condition in other situation, also same thing. Situation could change. Things could change, and We never know what is waiting, what changes it might come. And so therefore, feeling grateful and recognizing how fortunate we are, and therefore utilizing that condition to practice, to study, practice, and to enhance our practice. And also, when we don't have good health, when situation is not good, also recognizing, that, this is a time to practice even more strongly. If I don't practice more, then because this is our practice is the only one that can help us in those difficult times. Externally, it is already challenging, difficult, so it's not going to help us much. But what can really help us in those difficult times, those difficult situations, is our own practice. And it is our practice that can help us come out of that difficult situation emotionally, mentally. It is the practice that can help us at the end of our life, after the life, And so therefore, whatever situation, circumstances manifest or arises or encounter, utilizing that as a means to develop even more stronger inspiration, even stronger interest and enthusiasm and stronger practice, So I think, and then when we practice, as we mentioned, it's important to focus on the practice, that give us inner peace, Even within the inner peace and happiness, we should focus on the practice that brings more happiness to not only ourselves, but to other sentient beings. And so that means, the principal practice, the main practice that we should focus should be the practice on bodhicitta, the ultimate bodhicitta and conventional bodhicitta. And that should be the main kind of and then we were talking about, the misunderstanding, I think. Let me check. That was the 15, don't apply a wrong understanding or misunderstanding. And I was mentioning about, in the commentaries, they explain about, 6 different misunderstanding or wrong understanding. And we kind of discuss 2 of them. One of them is the patience, basically having a patience to unmeaningful samsaric activities, but not having a patience in engaging our practice of the Dharma, So that is kind of, when we don't have patience to practice the Dharma, but on the other hand, we have the patience to engage in samsaric activities. So from a spiritual point of view, that is a kind of misunderstanding of patience, wrong understanding of the patience. The main patience that we should have is to, the patience when we are engaged in a practice, our spiritual practice, our Dharma practice, And when we engage in a practice, whenever any challenges, difficulties, arises, having the patience and not giving up easily. Not losing courage and being discouraged and so forth, how difficult, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how long it takes to have some really transformation and change. So that, then we also talk about the wrong or misunderstanding of the aspirations or interests, and same thing, we have the interest and inspiration, samsaric, mundane activities, worldly activities, but we don't have so much interest and so much inspirations in our spiritual activities, our spiritual path. And that is, again, miss or wrong understanding of the interests or aspirations. We should have inspirations. We should have more interest and more inspirations towards our spiritual activities, more than the worldly activities. Of course, we need to engage in some worldly activities because for survivals, to pay the bills and so forth. But from the depth of our heart, we should have the main interest, inspiration, enthusiasm towards our spiritual activities, our spiritual practice. And then the third one is the wrong or misunderstanding of taste, like tasting the food, of course it is we enjoy and experience the taste of the samsaric pleasure. We have so much, we like so much, and we enjoy so much the taste of samsaric pleasure. But we don't enjoy and we don't like as much the taste of the Dharma. We are very much, we run after samsaric pleasure, and especially sensitive pleasure. Our life is all about sensitive pleasure, but we hardly have any taste or interest for the internal pleasure, the mental pleasure, mental happiness that comes through the Dharma practice. And that is why we continue to suffer, because we are so much attached to the sense pleasures, sensory pleasures. And because of that, we keep on running after them to get the object that give us sensory pleasure. And so then we hardly have much energy, time, resource to put effort in developing inner peace, mental peace, inner happiness, mental happiness that comes through training our mind through the practice of the Dharma. So here, the advice is to focus more on the tools, the method, the practice that will give us more inner peace, more inner joy, more inner happiness. And what helps us to do that is the Dharma, the tool, the method, the practice is the Dharma. Inner peace, inner joy, inner happiness cannot be brought by money. We cannot buy with the money. We cannot get it by force. We can get other external object by force, but this inner peace, happiness, joy, you cannot get it by forcefully. No matter how strong, powerful you are, you might be the most powerful person in the world. You can be most rich person in the world. You can be most, famous person in the world. Intellectually, you might be most intellectual or most smart in the world in terms of your, science, math, all of that. But all of that cannot give you inner peace, inner joy, inner happiness. And that can only be developed, that can be only achieved through the practice of through mind training, through Lojong practices, through training on the Dharma, At the moment, we are so attached to the taste of the samsaric pleasure and sensory pleasure, and therefore, in order running after them, we end up being disappointed again and again. We end up being more and more happy again and again. We end up, hoping this time it will be different, but ending the same situations, painful situation again and again. It's like a moth, moth or butterflies, when they see the flame, they get attracted to it, whatever, and they get burned, and they come and they get burned, and again they come again. Again they come again. And that is similarly what we do. Repeat the same thing again and again, and hoping each time it is a different result. And we find our same result again and again. And by doing that by following that approach, we have not been successful. So here the advice is, why don't we try a different approach? The different approach, instead of running after the things that give us sensory pleasure, instead we should focus on things that give us mental happiness, inner joy, inner peace. And not only just for ourselves, but to be able to also be able to help to others as well. Not only others, but all sentient beings. And that is what the practice of Lojong. The purpose of practicing the Lojong is to be able to do that. The purpose of practicing Lojong is to be able to do that. And so that is, so instead of enjoying into the taste of the sensory pleasure and samsaric pleasure, trying to develop enjoyment towards the taste, the blissfulness, the joy from the Dharma, enjoying the taste of the practice of the Dharma, experiencing and enjoying the taste of the Dharma, experiencing and enjoying the taste of the inner peace, inner calmness, inner joy, happiness. And of course, within that inner peace and joy, there are many different levels of inner peace and joy, As our practice progresses for higher and higher, as our practice advances higher and higher, the inner peace, the inner joy also progress more and more, become more and more, profound and better and better. When even we don't have realization of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, when we do meditate on them, at that moment, we do have certain inner peace, inner satisfaction, joyfulness. And when you have real realizations, then of course, the peace is much more profound, much more stronger. And not only once you have developed that, as you progress on the path, from first path, accumulation to preparation of meditations. Seeing the meditation, the path of normal learning. Then again, the state of your inner peace, the joy, happiness, increase, improve, become better, stronger, more profound. So that is then there was a wrong or misunderstanding of compassion. So what it means is, we feel compassion. Maybe, I don't know, compassion the right word. I think in Tibetan it's the same word, but I think maybe in English it might be different. But sometimes you feel pity, So what it is meaning is when you see someone engage in the practice of the Dharma, and when they really engage in practice of the Dharma, they intentionally, give up a lot of comfort, of world comfort, worldly comfort. They give up samsaric comfort. And they might be, not having a lot of comfort as we have. Maybe they have very, very basic, very little, living in a very small places, whether it's mountain, hermitage, or whether it's in a no home, and with the very simple things, then we might feel pity for them, sense of compassion or pity. On the other hand, we don't feel compassion for those who have a lot of, delusions. People who have a lot of delusions, who are very mean and cruel, unkind. And so here that is wrong or compassions. We need to have real compassion for the people who are more deluded than people who are less deluded. We should have more compassion for people who are more unenlightened than people who are more enlightened. We should have more compassion for people who are more cruel and unkind than people who are kind and compassionate. Because those sentient beings who are mean, cruel, more deluded, they are going to experience more pain and more suffering. On the other hand, people who are more compassionate, more kind, more enlightened, less deluded, they create less cause and conditions for more sufferings. And so therefore, we should have more compassion for that. And that is what it's saying. And I think now, at this time, I think it's very, we all know, we struggles. We all know we struggles to have compassion to certain individuals in this environment who seems less compassionate, who seems more unkind, more mean and cruel, and more selfish, and all of that. We struggles to have compassion for them. So here the advice is we should, even though it is not easy, but we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't give up. Instead, we should try to feel compassion for them even more. Again, just to remind you, because I have already mentioned many times, while we have to take every actions to stop such harmful behavior and actions and policies and whatever, at the same time, feel compassion for the persons and take actions to stop such harmful actions and behavior. And to differentiate these two things. And so I think that is the key. We shouldn't forget that too. It doesn't mean if we develop compassion, that doesn't mean that we kind of are okay with everything they do. On the other hand, just because we are not okay with everything they do, because they are damaging and they are harmful and they are leading to a lot of pain and suffering to so many sentient beings. So because we don't agree, and not only we don't agree, we should take any actions that we can stop for that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have a compassion for that individual. And that is, so I think it is important for us to remind that too and differentiate that too. And it comes all the times, and so we can see those people who have so much anger, hatred, not only they are experiencing suffering, we can see they are suffering a lot because of their anger, because of their hatred. But also they are creating so much cause and conditions for so much suffering in the futures. Unbelievably suffering and cause of suffering and pain for the futures. With that understanding, we try to develop compassion. Of course, we need to develop compassion to all sentient beings. That is the practice, the Lojong. That is the practice of the Bodhisattvas. We need to develop compassion and bodhicitta towards all sentient beings, but especially for those who are engaging into the more negative karma, who are engaged in more stronger negative karma, who are more deluded. So that is the, and the fifth one is wrong or misunderstanding of, I guess, sense of care or how to help others out of sense of care, So sometimes when we care about someone, instead of trying to help them, that can be most helpful in the long term, we tend to engage in something to help them that make them kind of happy in the moment. We want to please them, we want to make them happy. So even it might be harmful in the long term because it make them happy. So you tend to do that. That is misunderstanding of caring. That is misunderstanding of being helpful to someone you love. It's like someone who is abusing a substance, whatever that is, who has a problem with substances, whether it's alcohol, whether it's a drug, whatever. And if they ask you to do that, if you give them, it will make them very happy. If you refuse, they will be very upset and unhappy with you. But if you give them, even though it makes them happy in the moment, but it's going to destroy them, it only harms them. And so therefore, even though they are not happy, but you should try to help them. If you have really concern about them, if we really care about them, then we should try to do something that will be helpful in long term for them, instead of just trying to. And same thing, in other things, sometimes we are confused because of our delusion, anger, hatred, frustration, impatience. Due to all this our mind is confused. Same other people who are in those state of mind, they are confused, and then they want your support, to feel that, the other person is wrong, to feel them that they have right to be angry. They have right to be angry and they have right to react in that way. And then again, sometimes we want to make them happy. So then we say, oh, yes, you have right to be happy, angry. You should be angry. You have right to be angry. You should be angry. And you should retaliate. You should not take actions like that, So we give, so then it increase their anger, their hatred, instead of trying to help them to reduce that anger, hatred, frustrations, impatience, and whatever that is. So we are trying to help them, but what we are doing is long-term is harming them, damaging them. Even though in short term, it seems it makes them happy. It seems they feel supported, and so they are happy. But in long term, we are helping them to be more deluded. We are making them to be, make their delusion to be more stronger, more intense. So therefore, instead, we should try to help them what is not about what make them immediately happiness or joyful, but in long term, what is the most helpful, most meaningful. I think we do that when we are dealing with children. We do that, isn't it? They don't want to go to school. They complain about school. And if you say you have to go to school, they will be not happy. But because you know that going to school is good for them in long term, it is a benefit. So you don't, even they don't want to, even they are not happy, still you force them to go to school. Or same thing, if they are eating so much, so much, especially whether they have health issue or not health, if they are eating so much kind of, junk food, too much sugar. If you give them, they will be very happy. That's what they want. But because it is not helpful, not healthy for them, and is harmful to their health, so you try to not encourage. Instead, you discourage. You don't give them, you take away, because you have concern in long term for their benefit, because you really care about them. So therefore, when you really care about them, and when you try to help with that true care, you always think the long term more beneficial. What is the most beneficial? What is the most meaningful? Instead of immediate kind of reactions, how they feel it, And that is same attitude. We try to bring that kind of similar attitude in that to everywhere, dealing with anyone. And so trying to help instead of encouraging to engage in a more samsaric activities. We try to help them to engage in more spiritual practice activities, or in other ways, helping them to deal with their own mind, because that is the most important part, That is, we see with our own experience, we see people around us, we see in the world, if people doesn't know how to deal with their mind, no matter what, how powerful, how rich, how famous, they have problem. They have problem. They're unhappy, and they have a lot of problem. On other hand, people who have the tools, means, a way to deal with their mind, who know how to take care of their emotion, how to take care of their mind, even they might be most weak, even though they might be most poor, even though they might be most unknown, still they can take care of themselves. They have less problems. They have, less problems. They are more happy, more calm, more peaceful. So that is the key, the key, not because Buddha said, not because someone said, it's our experience. Our own experience is the experience of people around us, is the experience, the people that we see in the world, we observe in the world. So if we really care about someone and if we want to help them, the best way to help them is inspire, encourage them to work with their own mind, their own emotions. And if there's any way we can be any help to do that, by encouraging them through skillful means, not forcing, being inspirations, an example, so that you don't have to say them, they get inspired by your own examples. Then I think that is one of the best things, that the help that we can give to others. That help will be very helpful for their life and in the futures. Some of the other help, if someone is sick, we can help them at the moment. And then once they have recovered from them, again, they have other problems. It's never kind of ending. But when we are able to help someone to deal with their mind, then they can take that tools whole their life, then can apply that tools whole their life in every situation, in every difficulties, in every challenging, and they have the tools to deal with that. And if we talk about futures, definitely, higher rebirth. If we talk about liberation, definitely, getting closer and closer to liberation and fully enlightenment. But even in this lifetime, they have the tools to deal with any kind of challenge or difficulty that they might face in their life. What best gift we can give? There's nothing more best gift to be able to give that gift than anything else. That's the best way of helping. That's the best way of being caring about someone, And then the sixth wrong or misunderstanding is rejoicing. So it is, we have to rejoice. We have to rejoice to our own virtues, and we have to rejoice to the virtues of others. training to rejoice our own virtues, our own goodness, help us to, it helps us to be less negative of oneself, less less, low self-esteem, less self-hatred, because a lot of time when we have those emotions, low self-esteem, self-loathing, self-hatred, because we see the negative side of ourselves. And sometimes we can't see the positive side of ourselves, especially when you're in that state. And it feels like who we are is that negative, And so training, because to see negative is easy, whether yourself or others, it comes easily. To be able to see the negative faults, negativities of yourself or others is so easy. It's much more difficult to see positiveness of yourself or others. It requires effort, practice. So rejoicing in virtues is, and because we all do have a lot of virtues, a lot of goodness. So rejoicing our own virtues every day, our own goodness, by remembering all the good thought we have had, all the good things that we have done, small to big, through our body, speech, and mind, trying to remember, trying to recollect and rejoice, feeling joyful about that. And also we learn to rejoice in the virtues of others. Instead of being jealous and envy of others, we learn to rejoice when you see someone's being generous. How wonderful that person is, so generous. May I be able to follow like that person. How wonderful if you see someone is being very, moral, ethical, rejoicing how that person is so moral and ethical. Wow, wonderful. May I be, able to be similarly more ethical, more moral like that person. When you see someone patience, how wonderful that person is, so patient. When you see someone's joyous effort in their practice, enthusiasm in their practice, rejoicing them, how wonderful that person has so much enthusiasm, so much joyfulness in their practice. May I be able to, follow like that. When you see someone's, meditation or concentrations, good concentration meditations, rejoicing that. When someone has the wisdom, special insight, how wonderful that person understands the Dharma so well. How wonderful that person, has applied the Dharma in their practice. How wonderful that person has developed certain realizations. How wonderful that person has, have certain positive transformations, positive changes. So we rejoice in others' spiritual development, progress, their path, their virtues. And of course, not only that, we can rejoice in all the goodness and happiness of everyone's. When someone has when someone is in good health, we rejoice. When someone is in a good relationship, we rejoice. When someone has a good job, more security in their finance situation, we rejoice. So whatever goodness that we see, we rejoice in others. Rejoice in your own self, your own situation. When there is something good, to rejoice, whether it's your good health, whether it's your spiritual financial situation, relationship, whether it's our spiritual practice, whatever, we rejoice in ourselves and we also rejoice in others. So that is the right rejoicing. That is the right rejoicing. The wrong rejoicing is when you rejoice in the misfortune of someone. When you rejoice in the suffering and pain and misfortune of others, that is the wrong rejoice. And we have to be careful. We have to watch our mind so that we don't do that. It can happen. We wouldn't rejoice the misfortune and pain and suffering of someone who is close to us, someone who is dear to us, someone we like. But that can come towards someone we feel competitive, someone we are jealous or envy of, someone we have aversion and dislike, someone, like our enemies. Those rejoicing in someone's misfortune is so unfortunate, but it's such an unfortunate, but it could arise if we don't watch our mind, if we don't, if we are not mindful of our thoughts, our emotions. And sometimes we are not even aware of that. We are feeling so good of someone's misfortune, someone's pain, someone's suffering. And sometimes we are not even aware that we are actually enjoying, feeling good about someone's misfortunes, unless we are mindful enough to watch our mind. And especially in this difficult time, politically so, at this time, politically so much, I don't know the right word, chaos in this time, when there is so much bad feelings from one side to another side, all of that, it is easy for us. It might be easy for us to feel joy in misfortune and pain and suffering on the other side. So I think, again, it is a good time to practice, really to watch your mind, watch your thoughts, watch your emotions, and try our best not to feel that way, not to feel that way. Because when we wish someone's misfortune, pain and suffering, when we take delight in someone's misfortune, pain and suffering, then is totally contradictions to our bodhisattva practice. towards Bodhisattva path. Is the opposite of Bodhisattva's path and practice. It goes against our very basic human nature, our basic goodness. It goes against our very Buddhist practice. It goes against the Mahayana Bodhisattva's practice. It goes against all of that. It goes against all of that. Of course, being enlightened, very ordinary beings and having all the delusions, such feeling, thought can arise sometime, time to time, But the point is when we recognize that, then we try to kind of, instead of wishing them a bad, instead we try to see that, and then we try to wish and make prayer them to have a happiness, goodness. And while we can pray for situation to change, definitely we can pray, make effort and pray situation to change so that their action change, so their behavior change from being more harmful to less harmful or not harmful and beneficial. So their mind become more compassionate than more cruel, and so and all of that. From their mind to become more, to have more wisdom than ignorance and so forth. But at the same time, we wish them good health. We wish them all the best. Because just by having them experiencing a bad health doesn't change their mind. And we already see that. We already see that. You can wish them bad health. That is not going to change. The change need to be happening in their mind, their heart. We have to pray for that change in their heart, in their mind. Not something misfortune, pain and suffering, but instead we wish and we make prayer and dedication so their mind become more compassionate, more kind, and more understanding, more bodhisattva, more enlightened mind. And that one we can wish, that one we can pray, that one we can dedicate, and but not a delight and joy in misfortune and pain and suffering. So that is the wrong, giving up the wrong rejoicing and engaging the right, correct rejoicing. So yeah, we will have a break, okay? 10 minutes break. So that finished the precept number 15, and then 16 is where it says, don't be sporadic, how you say it? Sporadic.
Sporadic, yes.
Sporadic, okay. So what it means is when we practice, when you engage in a practice, Dharma practice, and especially here we're talking about Lojong practice, it's important to be consistent, Consistent is very important to make a real progress in our path. It doesn't help. One day you feel very enthusiastic, upbeat, and a lot of energy. And then the next day, you totally kind of give up, you know. The next day, then you have no intuitive system, you have no, and you totally kind of give up, or you don't do any practice. That kind of sporadic or fluctuating doesn't really lead you to a good result. So therefore, the important is consistency. You know, whatever practice we do, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be long, but whatever practice we do, they need to be consistent. And with that kind of consistent, then over the time, then you'll be able to see result, you know. One of the, you know, advice they always give at the monastery is, you know, that your perseverance or your, your perseverance should be like the running of the river, you know, always there. And sometimes we see, you know, sometimes we do ourselves, and sometimes you also see others, you know. Some students, you know, at the very beginning, when they meet the Dharma, or sometimes when they hear some new teachings, they get very inspired, they get a lot of enthusiasm, they have a lot of, you know, upbeat about that, and then, you know, and so they are like into it for a certain period of time. It could be a week, month, a year. And then after that, it's done. And then there is no more continuity. Again, look for another thing, search for another thing, you know. So there's no consistency. And when you don't have that consistent, I think one of the reasons why we are unable to have a effective result, good result in our practice, because of lack of that consistency, you know. So I think consistent is very important for our Dharma practice. And of course, I think it is not only Dharma practice, I think that is important in our life, in every aspect of things, you know. So what it also means here is, you know, we have to take this approach of, sometimes we had this consistent approach instead of something we say in all or nothing, you know. I see a lot of that kind of approach. And especially, I think I have seen in many students, that kind of approach. Oh, you know, either if I do, I have to do perfectly, or I don't do at all. That kind of approach. We can't be perfect because we are unenlightened. So that means you don't do it at all. When you have that kind of mentality, that kind of approach, either I do perfectly or I don't do it at all. So we can't do perfectly. So then that means we don't do it at all. And that is not going to lead you anywhere, you know. Instead, you know, even it is not perfect, but we try to do, the important part is consistent. And that is one of the things I've always emphasized. I always emphasize And again, I continue to emphasize, and also here the Lojong as in this precept says, whether it's our studying, whether it's our meditation, whether it's our practice, all of them, um, consistent pay, consistent would lead you to a positive result, the result that, and so therefore, at the moment when we feel like we do a practice, whole day, or maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, or whole day, and when you don't feel like, then we don't do any practice. And our mood keep on changing, Some days we feel like doing practice, some days we don't feel like doing practice. There's no consistent. But important is, instead of doing whole day or instead of doing 3-4 hours, you can do half hour, but consistent every day. Whether you feel like doing it, whether you don't feel like it, when you don't feel like doing it, you have to push yourself a little bit. And sometimes you might not enjoy the practice very much because your mind is not right state, your mood is not right state for whatever reasons, sometimes because of the environment, maybe the weather, maybe because of your body, maybe because of the diet, maybe because you didn't sleep well, or those different things, or sometimes something's bothering you at that time. So even when you try to do practice, maybe the practice is not so enjoyable as normally you are enjoyable. But still, even it is not as enjoyable, even though it is not so undistracted as normal, but still you try to do that. Just to keep that kind of consistent is so important. Isn't that case so for even for our health, physical health, diet, Same thing, consistent is most important. If someone is trying to lose weight for their health, or maybe they have to change their diet because of their certain issues in their health, it's not going to be effective if you just try to do a lot of exercise for 1 month, 2 months, and then you totally give up after that. Instead of that, even though maybe you might be doing very exercise, not a very long, even it's half hour, 1 hour, 45 minutes or less, if you do consistently, month by month, year by year, then that is where you will be able to have more success, to have more with your health. Same with same with people who try to change their diet for their health. Sometimes they change everything for few months or year, and they are able to lose what they need to lose. But after one day of lose, then again they go back to old diet, and again they started again, and again they started to have health issue. Instead, you change 1 or 2 things, you give up 2, 3 things, but you need to be consistent, whether it's a change of diet, whether it's change of health, change of the, whether it's exercise, consistent is important to have a better result. Same thing in practice, same thing in practice. And we have to remember when we are practicing the Dharma, we are talking about dealing with the afflicted emotions that has been part with us from the very birth. And if you go beyond that, from past countless lifetimes, and to deal with them and to overcome that, We need that continuity, consistent and continuity. Only way then we can defeat that inner enemy of defilements, afflicting emotions. So, so here, that is the advice here is instead of being so fluctuating and sporadic, we need to have that continuity and consistent. That is so important in everything, you know, be in health, be in relationship, be in practice, you know. Also in a relationship, you know, sometimes at the very beginning, we are so excited. Oh, whether it's a teacher, disciple, whether it's a friend, whether it's oh, so excited, it feel like, you know, everything's there then, and then it's gone. Instead, you know, you don't have to feel that way, but there's more consistency of, you know, that is important, I think. And that is same in everything's, I think. So that is much more healthy way, more beneficial, more healthy, to have more kind of continuity, more consistency than sporadic. Mm. So that is the 16. 17, practice unflinchingly. Mm. So what it means is, you know, when we engage in our Dharma practice, when we engage into, you know, Lojong practices, you know, we need to engage with a wholeheartedness, you know, your full, your full heart is in that, instead of not being fully there, fully dedicating, full-heartedly, you know. Then again, we will have a better result. Again, that is same in every activities, you know. If you full-heartedly, you know, you are fully dedicated and full-heartedly, you are going to have more success than when you feel like, you know, half-hearted, instead of being like, you know, one feet inside and one feet outside. You know, that is how we feel like at the moment. So you are not sure whether you are going inside or outside. You are just figuring out one feet inside, one feet outside. Should I go inside? Should I go outside? Unable to make kind of decisions, almost like that. You are not fully in, and you know, and sometimes our practice become like that. You know, sometimes we feel, oh, practice is helpful, meaningful, I need it. Sometimes we feel, oh, it's too much burden, it's too much, you know. Your mind is not fully into it, you know. And that is another reason why even when we try to practice, we are not seeing the result so much, because our heart is not fully there. We are practicing, but we are not practicing wholeheartedly, you know. Mm. So when we practice the Dharma, you know, definitely um, we should practice without any expectations and without any fear, you know. without any expectation and without any fear. And when there is expectation and the fear, then it becomes obstacles. Sometimes the fear is one of the reasons, maybe when we are unable to dedicate ourselves fully, wholeheartedly, and that become obstacles. The fear become obstacles to be able to dedicate fully or wholeheartedly. Also expectations, unrealistic expectations become obstacles, because when we have a lot of unrealistic high expectations, that tend to lead us to disappointment. And when we are disappointed, then we become easily discouraged. And when we become easily discouraged, then we give up. You know, then there is no continuity, there's no consistent, then we give up. And then, you know, again, it's like rebuilding everything again. You know, we have done some practice over the years, and we have some familiarity, and it has become more easier than when we first started. And after some time, you give up the practice for years, and then after again you come back, and then it feels like you are starting from the very beginning, because now you have lost all this kind of familiarity and all of that. Then it becomes more challenging, more difficult again. So yeah, it's and wholeheartedly in this case, unflinchingly, once we have committed ourselves to the practice, you know, it's important to try to complete it. Like everything, once we have taken the once we have kind of promised, or one we have taken on our shoulder, it's important to try to complete it. And not only Dharma, I think that is important quality that we need in our everyday for any other things too, you know. We commit to too many things and we don't complete anything. And that doesn't help ourselves, doesn't help others, isn't it? It doesn't give you a confidence, because you have taken too much commitment and you haven't been able to complete any of them. Then you know, it gives you some kind of, it doesn't give you a confidence. And then also it doesn't make good for others. People doesn't trust you. You lose the trust of others. And sometimes we do that, you know, so that is, and that means we are not, whatever commitments that we have taken on, we have not been able to give wholeheartedly to all of them. We have given a little bit of to each of them. And since we didn't give wholeheartedly, we are unable to complete any of those projects. And when we are unable to complete it, then we feel bad about ourselves. You know, we started to feel, you know, doubt our own ability. And then also, it doesn't give a good impression to others. And also, other people also doesn't trust. to give you any kind of project activities to do, because they are not sure whether you will be able to complete it because of our past record. And the reason why we are unable to complete them is because we have committed too much than we can, and therefore we couldn't give wholeheartedly to any of them. We couldn't commit and dedicate to any of those wholeheartedly, and therefore that is why, and so therefore, same thing with the practice, when we give wholeheartedly to one practice, whatever that practice, with the time, over the time, wholeheartedly and with a consistent, then you will see some small changes, small transformations, small result, and that will give you more confidence. That will give you more confidence to your practice. More confidence, more energy, more enthusiasm to your practice. On the other hand, sometimes we commit to so many practices and we don't give any wholeheartedly to any of the practices. And therefore we cannot have any kind of result. And then after some time we become discouraged. Oh, I've been doing practice for so many years. I didn't see any changes. I don't see any transformations. I don't see any result. Then maybe we started to doubt that the practice itself. Or maybe we think oh, I'm a bad practitioner. It's not for me. And then we start to become doubtful of ourselves and our ability, or the practice itself. And there's no enthusiasm. There's no joyfulness. Why? Just like so many committing to so many projects. Same here, because we are, do this practice, this practice, this practice, this practice, all here and there, everything, but doesn't commit fully to any practice. Or have you done this practice? Is it like, we have list, oh, I have done all of this. Is it like visiting place, You take all the places you have visited. I've been this place, I've been this country, You tick. Similarly, also with the practice, oh, I've done this practice, I've done this practice, I've done that, oh, I know this. So it's just like ticking. But have you really committed and wholeheartedly committed to one particular practice enough? When we don't do that, then it's hard to have the result. And when there's no result, then it's hard to keep up the enthusiasm, hard to keep up the joyfulness. So, one of the advice I give, when some students, friends come and see, if you have many commitment, many practices, while you can kind of just try to keep different commitment, you should focus wholeheartedly to one practice, one particular practice. You fully, wholeheartedly focus on one particular practice, and then, of course, you can also do other practices when you have other practices. But always you have something that you are fully dedicated, you have warm-heartedly, wholeheartedly dedicated to one practice, whatever that practice might be. So that is important to really have certain result, positive result. Okay, I don't know whether there's questions. Let me see. Do I see any? I don't know. I don't see the question. Okay. If there is time, could Gisela lead us in the meditation of rejoicing as an antidote to jealousy? That is one. And then secondly, I read recently in a meditation that I have continuously been breaking my Pratmosha, Bodhisattva, and Tantric vow. I think this must be referring to now in previous life. My question is, if I reach such a level of understanding in a previous life, how has this understanding degenerated in my present small understanding, degenerated in my present small understanding in this life? I think to that, you know, we are talking about this life mainly, of course, with that if someone has taken any of those vows, some of them might have just one of them, some of them two, some of them three, But again, because we are unenlightened, we continue to, and because we still have all the delusions, so even though we have the best intention, still we kind of break them time to time, and that is natural for the beginner. We don't have to be too harsh on ourselves, but recognizing that and acknowledging that and trying to, with that recognizing recognitions and acknowledgement, then we try to do the purifications as much as possible. Of course, in the past, we might not, who knows in the past, whether I have taken those vows or not, whether I was aware of that or not, that I had breaking or not, is hard to tell. But definitely it's more talking about this life if we have taken that, any of those vows, and being aware of that and recognizing that and acknowledging and then doing the purification. That is part of that. And sometimes, of course, things do generate. Even some understanding we might have in the past, if we have not continued it can be degenerated. Not only in the past, even in this life, we can see, even in this life, we can see degenerations in our mind if we don't keep on continuing to study, practice, some of the things that I study and I remember, now I don't remember some of the things because that has degenerated, because I don't revisit and many of the texts of that I've studied, which I've memorized when I was in monastery. Now I don't remember, and it's a degenerated because I don't recite continuously that. And so when you don't recite, then slowly, it degenerates. Your memory, you don't remember as you remember before. And same thing, even with some practice, you are good at a certain time, but if you don't keep on doing that after some time, then it seems like the practice you have never done before, So if we don't keep continuing to do it until we reach a certain point where there's no coming back, no returning back. Of course, in our practice, meditation, you can reach a certain point. Once you reach a certain point, then there is no more coming back. Then there is no more degenerations. But until we reach that point where you don't degenerate again, then of course, if we don't continue to practice, it can be degenerate. So something that we are aware in the past very strongly, if we have not continued to practice, then it can be degenerated in this life. And even within this life, we can see that. And so I think Yeah. One thing that helped me when I was back east in a very painful family situation was to remember that part of this suffering of samsara is wishing things were different than they are. Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's a lot of time is not being able to accept, for us not being able to accept the reality, what is there. We always wish it was different. We wish samsara was a nirvana, and not being able to accept samsara as a samsara, and wishing that to be a nirvana, and can be painful, just as here Susan has put it, is true. Once we learn to accept the reality, even though it is painful, but to be able to have the courage to accept as it is, then I think it is less painful. When we want things to be different than what really it is, and then I think, and when then it becomes much more painful. Yeah. Then there is, Gisela, sometimes there may be FOMO, fear of missing out. Not sure which practice to do. Should we practice this or another? So have so much access to Dharma as then we feel badly. Fear of missing out. I don't know what does it that really mean. Fear of missing out mean fear of not being in the group, in the society, not being accepted. I don't know.
Geshe, I think it's more like fear of, oh, maybe this practice would be better for my mind, or this practice, or kind of like, what am I missing kind of thing, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Then thank you. You answered me. Susan comment, one thing that helped me when I was a very family situation was to remember that part of the suffering of samsara is wishing they are different. Now, and I think that is, again, that caution comes from our bringing the materialism in our spiritual, In materialism, we want to try everything, or maybe this is better, maybe that is better, or this is better. And then even when it comes to our practice, always, thinking maybe there is something better than this one. Always thinking there is something better than this one. Maybe that practice is better than the practice I'm doing. We started to lumbering, and then you started thinking, oh, maybe the tantric practice are better than this. Maybe that is better. Then you start doing visualizations and mantras and the tantric different type of things. Maybe you think, oh, maybe mindfulness is better than this. After you do some part of mindfulness, then you will start to, oh, maybe Dzogchen is better than this. Mahamudra is better than this. Clear light meditation better than this. Never satisfied. And so again, it is the sense kind of dissatisfied attachments. Always thinking there is something better than this one. And as long as we have that kind of mind and attitude, then you keep on. That is sometimes what I see, some students, they keep on changing from different spiritual to different spirituals, hoping that is the one, and instead of being able to find their their path, not being able to find a path because they keep on trying all these children and this, and you know, because there's so much in the Dharma and there's no end to it, even with just different deities. You know, so we think we hear this, oh, maybe this deity is my karmic connected deity, not the one I have hammer. Maybe if I do that one, maybe my karma is more connected with, maybe that is more powerful. You do that, and after some time, oh, you don't feel the same way, and then you think, oh, maybe what about the other ones? And that keep on going and going and going. And then, as we mentioned, you know, you are not able to wholeheartedly devote yourself to one particular deity, one particular practice, and all of that. And I think that is a problem we have. Okay, so I think someone maybe Mary can remind me next week, maybe with a practice or with the meditations. Today we don't have time, but we can maybe do next week with the rejoicing part. Okay. So then we can do the dedications. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see form, the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored, finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains, bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid, those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kind in Zen Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subdued moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjuna virtuous doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayer, honoring and virtues, Savior, myself, and others, your disciple, please live long. Thank you very much, everyone.